Ago. As you know, the video came out today. Senator Bill Nelson has been instrumental in trying to get his release and find out whether the Iranian government is hiding him. He comes out front tonight. Plus, we keep following the story about this RQ-170 drone. I mean, John, I think this story is absolutely amazing. It's a top-secret, classified American drone. If the technology really is intact, one of the key things this drone has is the ability to be undetected by radar. Now, sure, this helps Iran, but the country it really would help is China. They've got a jet, a big fighter that they want to have this radar technology. They were a generation behind America. We're going to find out whether they're going to get this hands on this drone and what the risks really could be to the United States. Plus, John, one of the biggest retailers in America today coming out and pulling its advertising from the show All American Muslim, the reality show on the Learning Channel, which is designed to inform people about American Muslims, which is the fastest growing religion in this country. We're going to tell you why they pulled their advertising coming up top of the hour.
It's fascinating. I was actually just watching an episode of that just the other day, so I'm interested in finding out why. We'll see in just a few minutes. Aaron, thank you. The GOP frontrunner Newt Gingrich was off the campaign trail today, but hardly forgotten. In Iowa, Mitt Romney reminded voters Gingrich attacked the House Republican Medicare plan.
He called this right-wing social engineering. I believe it's a very important step to protect Medicare and to protect Social Security. We're going to have to make changes like the ones Paul Ryan proposed.
Speaker Gingrich also was on Governor Romney's mind during a Des Moines Register editorial board.
I disagree with the Speaker, thinking that we should eliminate some parts of child labor laws so that kids can clean schools. I don't think that's a great idea.
That was just one of several attacks during that conversation. Is being more aggressive the right Romney strategy? Our CNN contributor, Eric Erickson of RedState.com, is with us tonight. And here with me in Washington, Republican strategist and Perry advisor Liz Mair and conservative blogger Tara Wall. Eric, I'm going to go to you first, and I'm going to be clear up front. You're no Romney fan. He's drawing sharper contrast now. Is that the right strategy in Iowa?
I think he has to. He's had the luxury of sitting back and letting the other candidates fight it out, let them implode on their own. Well, there are 4 weeks left, or less than 4 weeks before the Iowa caucuses. We've got Christmas and New Year, so there aren't a lot of people paying attention. He's got to step up the attacks. Plus, Gingrich is the only guy right now in sharp enough leads in Iowa, South Carolina, Florida, now Michigan, which should be Romney home turf, and he's closing in New Hampshire. No one else has ever done that. He's got to start throwing some punches.
And it's not just Romney himself, ladies. Restore America, a super PAC that supports him. Now, allegedly, there's no coordination between these things because that would be wrong. But they seem to always mirror exactly what the campaign wants the message to be. The super PAC has this ad up, hitting Newt pretty hard.
Why? Newt has a ton of baggage, like the fact that Gingrich was fined $300,000 for ethics violations, or that he took at least $1.6 million from Freddie Mac just before it helped cause the economic meltdown.
Liz, is this going to work? And normally in a campaign, you would say that's pretty hard. Speaker Gingrich is one of those people who's been around. He's not new. Have people already digested and processed this?
Now, I think that when we're asking the question, is it going to work, there are really two questions in there. Is it going to work in terms of putting Romney in a position where he's able to prevail, obviously, and attract more support? No, I don't think it is. Quite clearly, if you look at the polling, Mitt Romney has failed consistently to attract more than about 20–25% of the Republican electorate. People just are not comfortable with him. There's the flip-flopper charge. There are charges just generally to do with his consistency and his record, and I think that that is a real problem, particularly when you look at things like the individual mandate for Republican primary voters. Now, when you look at Gingrich, it's entirely possible that what Romney is doing is going to bring down his numbers. I think probably it is going to contribute to that. And as to your question, do people really know Newt Gingrich? Yeah, he's been around for a long time, but in that time, he's also amassed a very problematic record. And you can see that with things like the ad that the Perry campaign has that hits Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich on their support for the individual mandate. That's something that Republican primary voters are not going to be comfortable with, and I think it's going to be a problem for both of them.
It's interesting you make that point. One more quick thing, Tara, before I bring you to the conversation, because the individual mandate, the Tea Party was the rising force. We were all saying, wow, the Tea Party, wow, the Tea Party. The two leading candidates right now, Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich, not exactly guys you would view as grassroots Tea Party guys. Listen to Rand Paul. Sure, he's conflicted. His father is Ron Paul. His father's running for president, but Rand Paul is a big Tea Party favorite. A lot of people at the grassroots listen to Rand Paul. Listen to what he thinks.
Newt Gingrich was a big champion of the bank bailout, so I don't know how he can be considered a conservative or appeal to Tea Party voters. I don't just know how, once people get to know who he is and what he supported, I don't know how the Tea Party could support him.
Might that actually be more effective? Again, I know his dad's running for president, but could that be more effective at the grassroots level with Tea Party voters than anything Governor Romney, anything Governor Perry could say?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Well, and of course, I've worked for campaigns. I've worked for candidates. I think it's great, actually, to see all of these candidates diving in, getting aggressive, and starting to talk about the issues. The fear, of course, is you're taking the attention off of the real candidate, who the eventual candidate will be on the Democratic side. But I think, look, there are valid points to be made, and I think for Newt Gingrich, he is, for some conservatives, at least, he is the kind of Tea Party candidate, the outsider, the non-establishment type, versus a Mitt Romney, who many conservatives kind of still see as that establishment type. As you mentioned, his numbers are down considerably still among Republicans. So I think that having kind of that outsider's view is a good thing for Newt Gingrich, not necessarily for Mitt Romney. I think we may get to this, but Perry is the one, kind of the outsider, that people are starting to look at, and that's why I think his numbers are starting to go up a little bit. People are forgetting about the fact that when you want to talk about conservatism or conservative values, if you will, many bloggers, at least on the blogger side, kind of validate what I've been thinking. An NRO National Review poll of conservative right bloggers actually tend to favor Perry
and
Newt as opposed to Paul
and Perry
Romney.
was by far the conservative favorite right when he got into the race, and he jumped up to the top of the polls. Then he had some bad debate performances. Then he said some other things. He's trying to rebuild starting in Iowa, and one of his appeals is to try. It's more of a niche than you would expect a broad-based candidate, but he has to start to rebuild, and he's made a very sharp evangelical appeal in his advertising. And this came up in his Des Moines Register editorial board today. The questions back and forth about whether, why was he putting so much emphasis on the role of faith in his public life? Let's listen to some of this.
If Americans want to elect a president who basically says, look, I'm not gonna let my faith intervene in anything that I do, and would be a bit, from my perspective, would be a bit scary. I want a president who is faithful and that believes that there is a greater being who has an impact every day in this world.
Now, there are a lot of liberals who say, oh, my God, well, I shouldn't say God, I guess, but oh my, he's talking about, God and important politics. Out in the country, I don't think most Americans actually would be perfectly comfortable with what he just said. It's then when you move on to the issues. What does he want to do? His stumbles have to do with policy questions and bad debate performances. But Liz, in terms of can he become, everyone's trying to do what Mike Huckabee did last time, come from nowhere. By now, Mike Huckabee was moving. Rick Perry's numbers are going up, but not at the speed of Huckabee's 4 years ago.
I think there are a few things that are really important to bear in mind here. One, as you alluded to, Rick Perry is the only candidate in this race who really can unite Tea Party conservatives, social conservatives, fiscal conservatives. That's a big chunk of the party, especially when you look at what voters are particularly concerned about at the moment. A lot of it is economic issues. That ties in with fiscal. It ties in with a lot of Tea Party concerns. That's point number one. Point number two is, I would say, it's very important to bear in mind what's going on the ground in Iowa right now. We have a very strong Iowa organization. We've got a lot of paid staff in the state. We got a lot of people who are active on the ground working with grassroots. We will have a bunch of volunteers going into the state. I really question whether other candidates have that level of organization. That's going to matter. And the final thing is money. At the end of the day, Rick Perry is an extremely good fundraiser, and we do have money to spend on this.
I think for a lot of folks, he is, if you will, a threefer. He does touch a lot of those points. I do want to go back a little bit, though, to Romney. I think one thing about Romney, whether you like him or not, he has to be careful when he does go after Newt with that area of hypocrisy, if you will. I mean, when you're talking about flip-flopping, I think he's got to be careful with that pot calling the kettle black situation. A lot of folks like him because of his business acumen and all of that. I mean, people like those two for different reasons. For Perry, again, it's kind of the threefer that people get. And I think in Iowa, he will probably do better than most people think that he will for that very reason.
And on that point, Eric, how well does he have to do for people to say, okay, he's viable to keep going? A lot of people, because he was so high, if he comes in pretty low, a lot of people are going to write him off.
I think they will. I think he really probably needs to be in the top three. I hear some people say he needs to be in the top five. I think he probably needs to be one of the top 3 people in Iowa. He needs to be competitive. If he's in the top 4, be very close to Mitt Romney. Again, you know, Iowa's kind of this wild anomaly that we start the race with. I can't understand why the Democrats and Republicans keep starting their primary season and caucus season with Iowa, but they're all going to bounce into South Carolina and Florida. The problem with Perry's campaign, and the reason he needs to do well in Iowa, is because he's sunk so low in Florida. The one wild card there, he's still doing well in South Carolina. He's still 3rd place in South Carolina, according to most of the polls.
All right, so Eric just mentioned the influence of Iowa. I want to show you guys something before we take a quick break, because this always comes up when you come to Iowa. A little poker match here. I want to go back, and this is the New Hampshire Democratic race in 2004. Before Iowa, leading in the New Hampshire polls, Howard Dean, then Wes Clark. John Kerry was struggling in 3rd place. That was before Iowa, right? Then Kerry surprises. Kerry surprises and wins Iowa, reshuffles the deck in New Hampshire. So remember, the polls now don't matter so much. Now let's look at the Republican race last time. This is again in New Hampshire. Leading in New Hampshire just before Iowa voted, Romney was way ahead. McCain 12 points back. Here was. Then Mike Huckabee surprises everybody and wins Iowa. What happens in New Hampshire? Boom. John McCain suddenly comes back. Mitt Romney starts to fade, and the rest is history. So watch Iowa. You can look at the New Hampshire polls now. You can look at the South Carolina polls now. You can look at Florida and beyond, if you will. This deck will be reshuffled after Iowa votes. It's just a little more than 3 weeks away. We're going to be there all next week. Everybody stand by. Up next, tonight's Truth ponders whether you vote at the bookstore. Sort of.
Why did we test the lithium polymer battery in our Sonata Hybrid for over 275,000 miles? So you'll have one less battery to worry about. The 40 mile per gallon highway Sonata Hybrid from Hyundai.
Taking antidepressants while pregnant may cause heart, lung, and other related birth defects. If you took Zoloft or any other antidepressants while pregnant and your child was born with a heart defect or pulmonary hypertension, you may have a claim. The FDA issued a public health advisory for SSRIs, including Zoloft, regarding additional risks of SSRI medications during pregnancy. If you took Zoloft or any other antidepressants while you were pregnant and your child suffered from a heart defect, pulmonary hypertension, or other birth defect, call 1-800-BAD-DRUG for a free consultation. Call 1-800-BAD-DRUG now.
They're stealing American jobs. Internet criminals using illegal foreign websites. They traffic in phony medications, counterfeit goods, and unsafe products. Stolen movies, TV shows,